What is going on, Sabres fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sabres Spotlight podcast with your hosts, Matt and Ryan, where we shine a light on all things Sabres hockey. Ryan, what's going on?
We got to jump right into it. We have a lot to talk about here.
And we weren't even going to do a show tonight. I mean, we recorded about a week ago, but I was kind of thinking we'll do early next week or whatever, kind of like after another game. And then we had the big press conference today, and I shot you the text a couple hours ago, and you were like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was fully expecting you to be like, "Nah, dude, let's just like post on Monday." And you're like, "Let's go." I was like, "All right, let's fucking go."
No, because this is dire. We need to talk about it. The state of this franchise. Every time I think about it can't get any worse. It just gets worse.
I know, and that's why I posted off of our Twitter that the Sabres' new motto was like, "Where else could you rather be than right here, right now?" As like a play on like the Bills, like where else would you rather be? Because it's like literally after that game against the Colorado Avalanche where they're up 4-0, it's like you would have almost have rather been anywhere but there in that moment.
Yeah, and I mean it's so the fact that this press conference happened like not right after that game because they canceled practice the next day and then they played Winnipeg yesterday. Like pretty tough game, I would say. I mean, they definitely their effort was there. They lost in overtime again, but after that Colorado game, dude, everyone was out for blood.
Oh my
Everyone is
god,
out for
yeah.
blood, and I gotta say, this press conference, Kevyn didn't need to make it like a thing. Like I feel like this whole day
How often do
was
other GMs talk?
I would say similarly. Like there,
Yeah, I feel like you should
there's a
probably hear from them every few months
yeah.
or
Like
whatever.
okay, I was gonna say that I feel like today's controversy and stuff is entirely self-inflicted. Like
Oh yeah, for sure.
let's say um Kevyn decides or the team decides, hey, let's do this press conference when we come back from the West Coast trip. You know, little Thanksgiving press conference. We just won three in a row.
That's when you do it.
That discussion would have been like, all right, like we're in this, like we're right on the cusp of a playoff spot, and instead they push it back. The Sabres drop, five in a row,
Oh my
and
gosh.
here we are, and now everyone's out for blood. Rightfully so, I would say, because this is slipping away again, and it's just hard to watch. But man, we're gonna get into it. Kevyn did not help himself today, like at all, and I kind of understand where he's coming from with some things, but we're not gonna let him, skate by here. There's a lot of blame to go around.
Yeah, so that's the thing that's hard is like you're totally right where it's the timing is everything depending on when you do it, but here we are kind of in the same spot where we've historically been with Kevyn Adams, and it wasn't 100% self-inflicted, but in my eyes that kind of shows me that like he doesn't know. I think he's finally realizing that he's in over his head. We've had a few podcasts since we've been doing this show since the start of last year where we've probably had at least two where we've just reflected on Kevyn Adams press conference comments like we're doing tonight. And I feel like for the most part, we have always talked about we've kind of to be fair and totally honest, I feel like talked about kind of highly about his press conferences. Like, man,
Yeah,
he kind of nailed that, and I kind of agree with a lot of the shit that he's saying. This is the first time, and this is where I'm smelling a little blood in the water. I think a lot of people are too. Is where I think he's kind of running out of answers, and he's expressing some. He's clearly frustrated with some things as well, where he's maybe handicapped with things, and it just feels different. And we'll get into some more specifics here, but yeah, he did not do himself any favors with holding this press conference today, and I don't think anything's going to really calm the fans down except for the players breaking out of the funk and putting together a good product on the ice. But I think with that, unless you got anything else, we can hop into the questions.
yeah. Let's hop right into it. I will say before you go, we're not gonna talk about all the questions, but
No,
how did you feel about Kevin's demeanor, like almost off the bat? Because I thought he was combative, like
He didn't want to be
immediately.
there. He was combative. I mean, you could tell even like the way he walked up to the mic and he lets out this big like gasp of like, "Oh, all right, let's do this thing." Like,
Yeah, dude, like what is that? Like
yeah.
I will say it is kind of a joke for like the media to be like, we got Kevyn Adams out there. Like I
Oh,
feel
Mike
like,
Harrington is making it
oh,
known that he
oh
requested this
my
interview.
God. Like I feel like that stuff is just making me puke. And like it's Kevyn Adams' duty to address like the fans, like, every so often, every couple months. So like this is almost entirely normal. Like this was coming soon, regardless of that terrible loss to Colorado the other day. And like, come on, dude. Like you didn't do anything. Like, yeah, you requested him because you have the credentials and whatnot, but this was happening regardless.
But
Like,
dude,
that stuff just kind of made me so mad.
it's got to be so bad when like I thought about this today. When fans are now mad at like reporters being like, "Ask harder questions. You're
Oh,
being too like,"
dude,
it's like rock bottom, dude. When
they
you're mad at
want
media people.
they want. I feel like the fans on Twitter, especially, are so funny that like if you go over like read Lance's replies or like Matt Fairburn's replies or Mike Harrington's reply, they're always like, you're just not like you're too nice. You're not asking tough questions. Like, dude, you're not gonna like tell the guy he's terrible at his job to his face. Like, that's not what they're gonna do. And to be fair to all of them, I thought they all asked pretty good questions today.
Yeah, the
Like,
questions today I thought were bang on.
Kevyn had his feet held to the fire, rightfully so. But I just wanted to start off with like, he kind of came in there like, I'm here, like let's go. Like he kind of
Yeah,
knew like what was gonna happen.
yeah. Which I feel like if you're a media person, be like, all right, well, if you're coming at me like, if you're gonna have this demeanor right now, like, I'm not gonna hold anything back. Like, I'm just gonna fire away, which is
Right.
cool. But so yeah, we'll go through the questions here. There was 14. Some we don't necessarily need to elaborate. I want to touch on all of them today, even if some are just kind of briefly given what he said. I'm sure there'll be some along the way that were more of the heavy hitter questions that we'll want to elaborate on a little bit more, and we'll talk about that as we go and give our viewpoints wherever we feel like we need to kind of chat a little bit more. But basically, started off the press conference, and I thought it was so funny in this first question because they asked if why the Sabres were so mentally fragile,
Oh my
and
God, right off the bat.
right off the bat,
Oh my God.
and and they asked him what are you going to do to change the composition of this mix. And what's hilarious about this question is he didn't even answer this question. He did
Oh
not
my,
even answer this question
dude,
at all.
this was politicking at its finest. Like, you know how like every politician, like whoever it is, like they get asked a question, they just don't answer the question. That
Yep.
was given here. Like that was like the guy that was pretty good politicking, I will say. But what
He
was
just
his
dodged
answer?
it. He just basically said that like he gave out some like advanced analytics saying that like we were like kind of in the middle of the road with some of these expected goals for and advanced analytics of like other playoff teams.
Yep.
And
Which
he
I
he
believe him, by
literally,
the way. I believe him.
yeah, I didn't take the time to look it up because like whatever, maybe he's right, but like advanced analytics for me, you know me, I'm not big on analytics. Like I'm more results
Yeah,
based, and
yeah.
it's like so is most of the population. Like nobody cares about advanced analytics. Like the general population of Sabres fans, unless you're like a diehard Sabres fan, you don't really give a shit. Like you care about what the score is and if you won or lost. Like let's be real. So like you can say all you want about those advanced analytics, but you didn't answer the question, and you're in the same spot where you are every year. So I was like, I'm just laughing though. So I'm like, he went on to the next one. I'm like, wait a second, he didn't answer the hard parts of that question at all.
Well, okay, as someone that does care about like those numbers, like that's not good enough for me. Like I don't care that like your 5-on-5 offense is comparable to, like a New Jersey or Dallas, like you said. Like, okay, your goal differential is -3. The Devils in the Dallas goal differential is in the like positive 20s. Like,
Hmm.
sure, you're driving offense, whatever, dude. You're driving offense with like a mid-level team, like a mid-level playoff team. You're not scoring goals. Like that's my cutoff point with analytics. Like you can be a great play driver, but if you're not getting raw point totals, it's just not good enough. So that's kind of what we're doing. And those numbers do not take into account the power play. Like that is strictly 5-on-5 stuff. The power play is a fucking joke. And honestly, like we said once again, it probably has cost us like at least 2 or 3 wins.
What I don't like about the advanced analytics is especially like the expect like I see their value. I'm not just like totally
Yeah, yeah.
shitting on advanced analytics, but like this is how I think about it in my simple mind. Like I'm a physical therapist. Some days I'm good at my job, some days I'm not. Like on a weekly average, I work 5 days a week. I would expect to do my job 5 days a week. That doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? So I would be like, I wouldn't tell myself like, I was expected to. I expected 3 good days a week of work this week. Like, and I worked five. Like, I was 60%. Like, and that's the thing. It's like I don't agree with it. It just sounds so weird to say because it's like, of
Well,
course you're
how it
expecting
is,
to score, and of course you're
like,
expecting to do good. And I know goalies make good saves and all this stuff, but I'm like,
yeah,
it's like anything else. It's based on results and what you're doing on the ice.
right. I mean, an expected goal is just like statistically a shot from that. Like, there are flaws because it doesn't. There are some models that like don't factor in like what type of shot or like if there's a stick in the lane or like something like that. But like it all it is just like you're shooting from X spot on the ice and it's expected to go in X amount of times. But like it's come sometimes it's like scored wrong. So like him falling on that like immediately is just like okay, dude, like oh, like your private like the private models I bet have the Sabres at like the 14th best team at driving offense 5-on-5. That's still not good enough. Like it's just not.
But I don't even know how accurate. We'll move on from this in a second, but I don't even know how accurate that is because remember you were talking to me last week that defensively we were like one of the best defensive
Yep.
teams, but our expected goals was like way low, like really low
Yeah. I mean,
in the
those are
league.
the public models. I'm not sure how much like the public knows. Like there are the teams pay like Sports Logic and like another company to do like private models, and that data is just not public. So I bet that like their internal stuff has different numbers than the public stuff, but it's still like to me it's not good enough. Like you can't be like, oh, we're the 14th, 15th best team at this. Like no, like you want to be in the top 10. Like you want to be good. Like that's mediocre. I'm not striving for mediocre here. I want good.
I
So
just wish I could
we can
use
get off
that.
this.
I just wish I could use that at my work. Is like
Yeah,
if when
you
I'm
can.
asking for a raise and they were like, well, your discharge percent was 60%. I'd be like, well, I expected to discharge 90% of people.
Or
Like,
you
come on,
can be like, if you're asking for a raise, you can be like, well, I am like, out of the 25 therapists here, I am like the 17th best one, and that's
yeah,
pretty good. You
yeah.
can't like
In
that's
terms of
ridiculous.
expectation.
It's just ridiculous. It right off the bat, I'm like my vibes were like, oh, this is not going to go well for anybody.
Yeah, Matt Bove kind of tossed him a softball next. Asked him about how they're going to think about developing differently, um, knowing that they've had some younger, or do they have to go and look at their development process differently, knowing that in some of their games more recently they've been unraveling due to some of their young talent? I don't really even think that's necessarily been the case. I feel like it's not only the young guys that have had bad games, so I don't really have much to say here other than that. Adam said that development's not linear, and the young guys need to learn how to play mistakes. Like, I mean, that's a simple Q&A there, but I didn't really necessarily agree with how Matt kind of led that question on.
I have a problem with this too because on Jeff Merrick's show, he also said today because he talked about the Sabres a little bit, and he was saying how like they didn't develop like a Jack Quinn properly. Like, what do you mean? Jack Quinn was putting up historic numbers in the AHL. He was ready to come up. Like in Kevyn Adams' defense, not a single person could predict the Jack Quinn fall off this year. He has beaten zero goalies. He has one empty net goal. Looks terrible almost every game. And just because his development, like just because he's not specifically playing well and he's a young player, like it doesn't mean that his development was ruined. It just means that like he's really struggling out there, and there's really just not much you can do about it. Like he's gonna be here. We can talk about him later because Kevin had an answer about his contract coming up that really pissed me off. But in terms like him and Cousins specifically, I think is what people are concerned about. I don't think anyone could have predicted like those two like playing the way that they are right now. And that is probably what is sinking our season, like at least 65% of the reason.
Yeah, Yeah, the only thing I'll say is like that's his job. Like it's your job to know that stuff. You know, like you're handing out these contracts, and every single sport it works the same way. You're handing out contracts based on predictions. What is a
Yeah,
guy going to do for you, and what and he hasn't they haven't paid Quinn yet, of course.
right.
Obviously they paid Cousins, but he keeps talking about, oh, I haven't spent this money because there's more deals to come.
Yeah,
So
that's a
you're
joke.
wondering,
That's a
yeah,
joke.
so you're just like, again, my thing is like, well, dude, like you're literally paid to be the one that gets these right, and if it doesn't, it falls on you. I'm sorry, like you've made a couple, you missed with Samuelson, you missed with Cousins, and we'll see what happens with some of these other extensions that the hands out. I honestly think they're overpaying for Darlene right now, and Power. By those, I'm not down on those guys, but some of these contracts they're not great for Kevyn Adams. But we'll move on to the next one here. Do you look at the last 2 years and think you need to make changes to the core of this team? Kevyn Adams said they're always evaluating. He gave some of his usual excuses here. Always evaluating. Nothing's ever off the table. We should be in every conversation, which we are. Says you have to draft and develop well, and we're in that process. Doesn't waste an opportunity, give himself credit for some of the trades that he has completed so far. He mentions by name Byram, Tuck, Krebs, Greenway, McLeod, and Malenstein. Also ends this section of his answer by saying that we're not a destination city right now. There's a lot there. Anything you want to comment on?
You do have to like the Sabres probably were like one of the most active teams in the summer and in last trade deadline. Like he did make trades. Like the thing is, I didn't like the way that this question was framed because it gave him an out. Um, they're framing the question as like him making like not making moves, but he does make moves. He just doesn't do that like that next big thing that like puts you over the top. Like these are all like good trades. I mean, the Eichel thing and getting Tuck, great. The Byram trade is looking, better by the day. Bo Byram is definitely playing very well. Like we don't have to go into all of these, but like these are all players that he acquired that are contributing in some way. I mean, they really miss Jordan Greenway. I can't believe how much they miss Jordan Greenway. But this isn't enough. Like you left yourself cap space in the summer to go get like a bigger move, like a bigger scorer or like a defender. And yeah, you're making moves and like he can always fall back on him making moves, but like it's not like you don't have like a signature I got this guy and this is part of what's gonna like put us over the top. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And also like this list of moves, the way the way he's built things is just, I think he understands team building and what it takes to build. He
Yep.
just doesn't have the right people in the right spots. We've kind of talked about Alex Tuck, who's like on a really good team. He's realistically probably like a third line player, like a lower tier line two player, like an upper tier line three player. Bowen Byram, good defenseman. Did we need him when you have guys, when you have two number one picks already, and Byram and Owen Power? Did you need to go get him? Because we're missing Casey Middlestat right now. Peyton Krebs is like, I mean, I know he was part of the package with Tuck and them, but they were kind of counting on him to be a piece that kind of takes a step up. He's like, he hasn't done it. Ryan McLeod's been fine, but like Beck Malenstein, another guy he mentions in here, like you traded a second round pick for this guy. Like we already talked about how you already had Eric Robinson. Like these moves are like kind of run of the mill GM moves, and it just kind of showing you that like Krebs he thought was going to be something he's not. Malenstein is like a meh fourth line player. Byram is like a good player, but again, like if you were going to ask me right now, I'd rather have Casey Middlestat here as 2C and Dylan Cousins as 3C. So it's just, I think he can identify and knows how to, what a winning team has, but he cannot build it.
Yeah, I I agree with that because it's like the team just it feels like they're built wrong still, and it's like this is year 4 or 5 of Kevin, and we're at this point, and it's just frustrating. What did you feel about his not a destination city comment? I do feel like the memes that have come out of this comment are very funny. So he gave us some content here, but I agree with him and I don't agree with him. But I think I don't agree with him for the reason being that we're not a destination city because we're bad. Like it has nothing to do with the weather or like hockey players are wired differently. Like
Mm-hmm.
I the whole like no state taxes or like warmer weather in Florida and Tampa and like whatever. That stuff, I overlook that stuff. Like look at the good team like good Toronto, amazing team. They have higher taxes than us. They're just really fucking good. Winnipeg,
But some
there's
players don't even want to go there, even though they're a
yeah,
destination city, because of the pressure. You can't get
the
any lower pressure than Buffalo, other than
the
like,
the Rangers, New York Rangers, higher tax bracket, like higher taxes, the same state. Obviously it is New York City, so it's amazing to live in, but cold weather, high taxes. Their team, maybe not so much now, was good. They pull in guys constantly. Winnipeg,
but look at even the
we
Rangers. Sorry to interrupt, but like Jacob Trouba just got traded to
they
Anaheim,
treated
and
him
that's a guy
terribly.
who
They
like,
treated him terribly. I feel so bad for him,
but
even though
but that's speaking to your point of hockey players wired wrong. Like he literally told him, like, I don't want to move, and I'm not waving my like I want to stay here. My family's here. Like
yep.
those things matter to these guys.
The only reason Truba waived is because they threatened to put him on waivers. Like he was gonna stay. He was trying to. He interviewed today. In his interview today, he said they literally threatened to put me on waivers. And at that point, just he got to pick where he wanted to go, and he got traded to Anaheim. Whatever. I mean, good for him. Again, Anaheim, California, high tax state. Like this stuff doesn't matter as much as Kevin Adams has been saying. Like we're not a destination because our team is terrible. Look at the Bills. The Bills beat reporters were dumping on Kevin Adams for this comment because
Hmm.
the Bills are a destination, literally the same city. They're just an amazing team and they can get whoever they want whenever they want. So it's
Hmm.
just about the weather or the fact that there's no palm trees or the taxes. It's about your team being utter shit for 14 years.
Hmm. It's we talked about this. I think when we talked about his last press conference, and I mentioned the fact that like you can use that as an excuse that we're not a destination city right now, but like your job is to sell that player to
Yep,
come here. Like
I
that's
agree.
another reason why
Totally.
you are paid probably a very handsome salary to make this happen. Like the Bills didn't have a culture put in place until Sean McDermott was there. Now, maybe Lindy's going to reestablish that culture. We don't know.
I
It's only been
He's
26
done. I
games,
don't I don't want him here anymore.
but okay, so that's a separate thing, but I'm just saying like so the the point here is the Bills didn't have a culture till you hire Sean McDermott. Bean comes in with him, and then you finally had someone from the management aspect to round it out, bring it all together to make the right moves to create that winning culture and maintain it and sustain it like he's talking about. It just you are what you reap what you sow basically. And like if you're going to continue to just accept and that this is the hand that I'm dealt and I can't, I have all these barriers. Like at some point, dude, you got to be the person that breaks those barriers down. Like you got to be the one who makes the move and does it. And if you cannot do it, then someone else has to do it. Like
Like it makes no sense.
enough is enough.
It makes no sense for him to say that because I'm thinking of like while you're talking, I'm thinking of other teams. Minnesota, great team, cold weather. Winnipeg, the coldest weather. At one point, they were the hottest team in the league. They keep guys constantly. Guys sign there for long-term deals constantly. They make trades. They make big moves. They traded Pierre-Luc Dubois a couple seasons ago. They like what is happening here? Like what is forcing you to hold on to these guys? Like he's just I don't know if he's not trying enough or or there's just a money constraint, dude. I can't get over the fact that like everything he's saying just ties it back to I'm not given enough resource. Yeah, yes, he's saying that he's given enough resources, but I don't think he's given enough resources, man. I feel like Terry says spend this money, try to be good within this budget, and if you're not, then oh well. Like that's and then Kevin just goes out there and takes the bullets for Terry, and we do this every single year. This whole thing.
Yeah, so that's a discussion we'll have certainly. Here's a because we'll get into ownership and some of
This
that
was
stuff
fucked
later.
up.
But
This was a really awful answer from Kevin.
no, but I'm before I get into that. This was I don't know if you saw this. This was 4 hours ago. Greg
Mm,
Vorse from Cover One
yeah,
tweeted
Bill's
this
guy.
about about what we're. Do you see this about what
Yep.
we're saying specifically? And said the Bills traded pick 21 plus LT. You know who LT is?
Who the fuck did we trade? I forgot. I forgot who we traded then.
Either way, Bills traded pick 21 plus LT to get pick 12. Traded pick
Oh,
12 and a pair
the
of
tackle.
seconds. Okay,
Fuck, I forgot his name. Go ahead.
either way, that's why we're Sabres guys. Traded pick 12 plus a pair of seconds to get pick 7, where Buffalo selected Josh Allen. The GM moved heaven and earth to select the quarterback most didn't believe in. While making an excuse, Kevyn Adams accidentally showed what he hasn't done. And that's exactly it. It's that you can make all these excuses, Kevin, but you have the picks. You have charge of the you're in charge of the roster. You can make these things happen. If you had the willingness to go do it, you would go and do it.
Yeah, he just hasn't done it. He like I said earlier, he just doesn't have a signature move. Like his signature move is trading guys away and then them going and winning a cup.
All right. How do you square the roster age being so young with the fact that you're supposedly in win now mode? He was sarcastically
Dude,
responds saying that we should sign Craig Anderson, which would have added a year, and then you wouldn't have asked this question. And so that was
what
like
a fucking
unbelievable.
crock of shit, dude. What a crock of like this. Oh, this one really fired me up. Like I want to defend Kevin for a lot of this stuff, but this one was so uncalled for. Like you do have the youngest team in the league. Like you do have young guys. We have Yuri Kulik in. Like yes, we love Yuri Kulik. We think he might be like a decent player in the future. 20 years old. He's out there in fucking overtime. Like oh come on, that should not be a thing. Like it just shouldn't be a thing right now at this point in the rebuild. And you want to say that you're you're gonna
Also, like
sarcastically say
like Craig Anderson catching strays. Like, come
like
on.
because he's an old man, but like you want to sit here and be like, oh, because I think the way that was the question was asked was that like no one under the age of 20, like no average age under 26, like makes the playoffs.
Yeah, that's
So,
why he
like
got
yeah,
pissed because he
like
was challenged on his roster building.
yeah, so like yeah, you add Craig Anderson and their average age goes to like 26.9 or some shit like that. And it's like, dude, like that's not the point of the question. The point is like you built the youngest team in hockey again, and it's getting you nowhere again.
Hmm. Yeah,
But he
and
was
that's
mean
why
about
he
it.
got so pissed off about it because it came back to he was being challenged about like you've been in charge for 5 years now and you're continually running out a lineup. And I get it, it takes a couple years to make the changes you're looking for, but like when you it's been 5 years and you're continuing to run out one of the younger teams in the league, like do you are you willing to admit that that was probably a mistake and that you should have done something else to try and get some more talent in there, some more proven NHL talent, and he didn't like that he was being challenged on that, and that's how he responded. But he did say that we're building for sustainable long term success, so you have to go young and learn along the way. He won't make a reactionary trade or decision. Yeah, no shit, Kevin. You don't have to CYA yourself on that. We already know that that's not going to be a thing. All right, we can move on to the next one here.
Yep.
Asked about Lindy's impact, he says accountability is a hard word to frame for the media and the general public because they don't see behind the scenes things, and says gives credit to Lindy bringing more defensive structure and winning on off nights. Hard to really argue with anything he really said there. I feel like those are
Well,
all kind of valid points.
this is where I'm like, well, number one, goes back to ownership again because Lindy got hired and wasn't allowed to bring in any of his guys. So he's working with all the same coaches that we had last year, plus Seth Appert,
So I
who
have a thought on that.
he can't coach a fucking power play if his life depended on it. And what was my other thing? Oh,
You an effort, man.
dude, it's so bad. It's so bad. What a horrible hire. And he's supposed to be like the coach in waiting. Oh my god, we are so cooked. And my other point, like the other day, we played Minnesota, right? Do you remember what line got matched up against the Kaprizov line?
No, I don't remember. Was it the top line?
It
Tuck
was
line?
the Cousins line. Cousins, Benson, and Quinn. Kaprizov line fucking dominated us for 3 periods. Lindy did not change a single thing for 3 periods. And that line
Is that more recent
single-handedly.
though? Because a couple weeks ago you were saying that he was doing the right things and doing the lineup switches. Like, so has
Yeah,
he
well, we
stopped?
got we got bodied on home ice by Minnesota, and that pissed me off.
So you're
So
saying it's just inconsistent?
yeah, pretty much. Like that was ridiculous. Like that was worse than, and the challenges too. Like the failed challenges are worse than anything Granado has done. Like in his tenure. Like this is ridiculous. This is basic level stuff here. What are we doing? Like he came in and like was supposed to preach accountability, all this stuff. It's Lindy. We love him. It's the same. It's the same. Like nothing has changed. Like it's not any different.
So we'll skip down to one of the last questions here because it kind of ties in with this. They asked a question about how did they arrive at the decision to not bring in other outside coaches, and Kevyn Adams basically says that he asked Lindy about it. Lindy said that he wanted to proceed with the current staff and get to know them. I'm wondering if
There's no shot that that is true.
so
None.
if it is true, I don't know why
It's
he lied about
not.
it, but why
These
would he
guys
lie
are,
about it?
because he's covering for his owner, dude. He's covering for Terry. There is not a single coach in this league is hired that doesn't bring in his own guys.
Unless
Not a
there's
single one.
unless Lindy has a certain degree of apathy with it. Is what I'm saying. Is what I'm wondering. It's like,
Well,
and that's why we're not getting results.
Kevin had to fucking beg him to take the job. Like
But that's
Lindy
what
had
I'm
said,
saying.
there is not a single coach in this league that gets hired and they don't bring in their guys. Like the reason these guys are still here is because they still have a year on their contracts. It's insane. Like Lindy doesn't know these. Like Lindy doesn't know Seth Apper. Like Lindy doesn't know who the fuck coaches defense. I forgot his name. Lindy doesn't know these guys, and they were just he was just brought in and expected to, you know, turn things around with people that he doesn't know on a coaching staff, mind you, that has been terrible.
And you think he wanted to. So you think Lindy went to them and said, I want to bring my coaches. And they told him no.
100%, 100%.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that could be possible. I mean, if what you're saying and what you're believing, which I tend to believe is I'm kind of leaning towards that side as well, that there is some, internal limits and restrictions, then they're just going to say no, you can't because we got these guys on contracts already. But man, that's like
And
tough, dude.
how
You got
much
to
is an
know.
NHL assistant getting paid? Like 200K? Like it's nothing. It's peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
Why would he come here then, dude? Why would Lindy
He
take this
loves
job then?
hockey, loves Buffalo, dude. Like he is Buffalo. Like a chance to come back here and be the savior. Like I think anybody would want to do that. And like I said, they had to. He said that Kevin had to call him like 3 times for him to take the job.
I wonder if he was
He's definitely
thinking.
regrets it now. I think he regrets it totally.
I wonder if he was thinking like more was going to be done roster wise
Yeah,
before the season
probably.
started to help him. Because I mean, you could have looked at this, which we did. I mean, we both said coming into the season like Kevyn Adams upgraded this roster. Like if you go back and listen to our shows from 2 months ago before the season started, we were like, this roster is better than last season. We're fringe playoff teams. We were smashing the overs. We were in on that.
Yep.
But there's no way that Lindy. So Lindy could have taken this job and looked at the current roster and said, maybe like I can get there with this. Like I can do what they want me to with this, just being who I am and whatnot. But I would just wonder if there's a part of him that was kind of banking on like, all right, Kevin, let's try and like do a little something here.
Like get me one or two more guys. But can I also say that it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to still do the thing? Like it's in like
No, and I don't think it is. I because we believe in
the
the
East
we
is
still believe
terrible. The East is terrible. That's the thing that makes me the most mad.
that is what's helping them for sure. And I still kind of agree with our assessments before. As much as we shit on the team and everyone last week, somewhat facetiously,
Yeah, I mean, it
somewhat.
was like mostly joking. We were just
But
kind of being mad because it was funny.
also like I have way more question marks about these players now. Like you wonder about these guys. Like what is Cousins? Like Quinn is taking
Right.
a huge step back. Paterka
Even
like is
Paterka, dude.
inconsistent. Yeah,
Paterka goes for a long time.
yeah. There's validity to a lot of the shit that we said last week, and a lot of people are having the same thoughts and opinions. But it just comes back to what you're saying. Like the East is kind of like crapping its pants all over itself this year. So it's like if the Sabres can find something from they had 2 years ago, that's like it could still happen. There's still like decent enough talent on the ice where you could maybe get it done again. And that's not some miracle thing. Like half the teams make it, but
Right.
you can still do it. Like we're going to continue to watch this team and hope that they win. The one thing that I think we're saying more consistently over the last 2 weeks was what we know will not happen is Kevyn Adams is not helping this roster out. I
Yeah,
don't think he's
there's
going
no
to be
way.
able to make a move. So
Yeah, I agree. Like nothing's coming. Like if something, if like they do end up doing the thing, like end up, you know, getting into a wild card spot, like it's gonna be all on them. Like it's all on them. Like
hmm
nothing else is coming.
yep, yeah,
And
absolutely.
as I look at it, the Sabres currently are 3 points out of a playoff spot. Like we're sitting here
Yeah,
like,
but look at the point percentage, dude.
yeah, I know it's bad, but it's just
Like
still.
we're at a 480 point percentage right now, and that wild card two spot is 563.
Well,
I was looking at that
just
before we
as
got on.
just as quickly as this team loses five in a row, they could win three in a row. Like they've already done it, what, two or three times? That's the part that's so frustrating, man.
I know, but like as we stand now to get back in it, like you have to win probably 3 or 4 in a row to get back in it,
Yep.
and then you're probably gonna lose one, and then you probably have to win another 2 or 3 in a row
Yeah,
again to
they
like
have to.
feel somewhat comfortable again.
Yep.
I said it before. Lindy's just got to take those standings down because that team is not. That team does not handle pressure at all. All right, so then uh, Kevyn Adams was asked after the loss on Tuesday, "What do you say to the fans who are sick of hearing about learning and developing? They want to win now." I love this question. I don't know who asked this question. This might have been Mike. I don't know, but um, he said, "I understand, but I'd also say you're not out of the playoffs in December." Says it's a sign of growth that they got a point in the next game after that Colorado loss didn't carry it over into that game, and we have to own it, look at the video, and move on. Anything you want to say there?
I am so like to be a fly on the wall on Wednesday when they canceled practice. Like I would
You
have
think Lindy
loved.
just reamed him out?
Oh yeah. Like
He
they
just
played.
cooked him.
Yes. That video must have
Dummied
been so video must have been so painful, dude. Like they played really hard on Thursday. Like you can't. And here's the thing with this team. You know how last year like effort was so poor in the first period
Oh
of
my
like
god,
almost
yeah.
every game. Effort is not the problem anymore. Like these
No, and
guys
neither is
play.
conditioning. Like they
They
looked
play
better. They
hard
got
as
better
hell.
shape.
They
Yeah.
play hard. They're just sometimes not good enough. And they have brain
hmm
farts and stuff. And like Lindy, definitely like Wednesday must have been a horrible day to be a Buffalo Sabres player. But so I kind of agree with Kevin here. Like, yeah, they have to like. There's the only thing they can do is learn from it and grow. Like, I don't agree with. I think Mike Harrington said this was the worst loss in the history of the
Oh
Sabres
my
franchise.
god, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
all right, yeah, they blew a fucking 4-goal lead and like it didn't get a point, and it's super embarrassing. But come on, man, like that's just trying to like rile up the fans. Like
yeah,
only thing we can do as fans is hope that like they do like learn from that. Like that was insane. Like
yeah.
I was, Chad, the
That was
data,
egotistical to be like, "Oh, look at me! I say these harsh things to
yeah,
show that I'm asking the tough questions." Like he knows
like
what he's doing.
dude. So Chad, DeMonitis made like this point on his show because he did like a little mini Sabers mini podcast episode,
A mini
and
offering.
he was saying that like in his head he was counting how many more Nathan McKinnon shifts he has until like the game's over, and I felt that too because I was like, all right. McKinnon didn't score on this shift, but he's out again. And every time he was out there, it was so scary. Like that was,
Yeah,
dude, that was insane performance from Colorado. Like you have to really give them props. Like they did the thing and we didn't. And like the only thing for the Sabres to do is just, take their medicine, eat it. Lindy reamed them out and we moved on and we go ahead and here we are today.
it reminds me of. I remember being in high school basketball, our coach was tough as hell. Great coach, and it's kind of similar to the Sabres in a way. Like my freshman year, I had this knucklehead coach who, like, my JV year, I was a freshman. I was benched the entire year because this guy just believed in playing the sophomores. And my dad told me, he's like, Matt, he's like, I don't know how you're doing this. Like, you're better than these kids that are starting, and you're not playing a single minute. My dad literally told me, he's told me never to quit anything. He's like, Matt, if you want to quit this team, I will fully support that. I understand. And I was like, you know what, Dad? No, I'm going to stick it out. So leaves after my freshman year. We get this great coach, revamp the whole program. Right. I get to my junior and senior year, and we have a good team. We have good players, but we always had effort issues, like, with our team. Like, we were mega talented, but there's always, like, we'd always lose games we shouldn't because of effort, kind of like the Sabres from past
Yeah.
years or whatever. So I remember one game we got crushed. I forget who we were playing. It doesn't matter. But our coach afterwards, the next game, he told us, he goes, guys, every time the other team scores a bucket, if there's one of our guys that's not on the side of the halfway court defending, and one of you are back on our side of the field store, every time that scenario happens, we're going to add one sprint, like a suicide thing. And we had to cash him in the next game. And you better believe we were busting our ass that next game. So when a
Yeah.
bucket, that's all we were thinking about. Honestly, we didn't even care about, like, if we were winning or losing. We just wanted to make sure none of us were on the other side of the court when a bucket
That's
went in.
so
But
funny. That's
I
so
feel
funny.
like, Lindy obviously canceled practice and didn't make him sprint, but he probably, gave him some verbal assaults, I'm sure.
100%.
All right, we'll move on here. Talked about Owen Power. How do you
What a
get Owen Power
controversial
to
figure.
actually how do you get Owen Power to actually play defense and guard the front of the net?
Like what? Like who asked this question? Because that's so sarcastic and ridiculous. Like you could frame this in a more professional way.
I loved it, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I loved it.
My God, sounds like a Mike question.
I don't mind calling out players, dude. I
I
don't mind. These
like
guys are
that, dude.
professionals. They can make $8 million, like,
I
whatever.
know, but like that, like come on.
What, dude? That was
We
no
can say it
harm, no
because we're
foul.
nobodies, but like to have a press pass, I feel like you have to be a little bit more cordial.
I guess. But anyways, sarcastically again, he says, "Did you see the good things that Owen Power does too?" I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind having a little edge when someone calls out your players like that
Yeah,
and
he's got to
defend
stick
them.
up for Owen.
Like, that's cool. Like, whatever. Says he's a work in progress, wants him to be more physical and aggressive. I talked about this on our event session last week. I do still want to see this from Owen Power. I understand that it's not his game. He's not going to lay the big hits and things, but he is a first round pick, or first overall pick, right? And I for the size of his frame, I don't think there's really not an excuse for him not to, like, clear the net better and just be more physical and just kind of, like, just a little bit more heady with things. I think some
Yeah,
of that will come with time, but the longer it goes, the longer I get concerned, to be honest, if that's ever gonna, like,
yeah.
become a thing.
I don't even think it's like a pure physicality issue because I don't think he's like this year he's been more physical than he's ever been, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like
he's better, yeah, but
it's
that was a low bar.
not in front of the net because like I feel like it's an awareness issue. Like it's not a
Totally.
physicality issue. It's entirely like defensive awareness in front of his own goal. Like last night, behind the net, Mason Appleton of Winnipeg has the puck, and Power fucking labeled him and put him on the ground, and the camera cuts away to behind the net where you can see Owen like throw like having his hands on him. He gives him another shot. So it's
Hmm.
like that
He
stuff is
saved a goal in that game too. On
yeah,
the Winnipeg had a power play, and he tied up a guy's stick with his stick.
yep,
On the I forget who the Winnipeg player was, but he tied him up, and the net was open. The guy would have scored on the cross wing pass.
yeah.
So,
And he
like,
doesn't get
he
credit for
does
stuff
those
like
things.
that. He doesn't get the credit
No,
for stuff like that.
he doesn't get credit for things like that. You know what, I feel like it is like an awareness thing, like you're saying. I do want him to be a little bit more physical, which I
Yeah,
think can happen, and they can work on that. I think that can
just in
improve.
front of the net, dude. Like you don't have to like you said like I think who I don't know who made this point, but like you have a stick. Like your stick is not just for like controlling the puck and passing and scoring and shooting. Give a guy a little cross check in front of the net. Like get him
Yeah.
out of UPL's kitchen. Like you can do that, dude. Like it's okay.
I
Like
just
that's
have
like
him watch game film on McLeod because McLeod is a master at that shit. Just getting
yeah.
his stick in passing lanes and just like influencing the play when you don't think don't think he can. So he's a guy who I think is
Yeah.
good at that.
And he's still, this sucks to say, but he's still so young. Like, yes, he's played like games. He's got 2 seasons worth of games, but like these guys are, they're not, they don't have like NHL age. So it really
Yeah,
does suck. I feel bad. Like, and I will say though, like his contract, I feel like is totally fine. Like, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. It's just taking a little longer than people are prepared for. Like, if we had like, let's say we had like 2 playoff berths, in this time where we haven't gone to the playoffs, I feel like people would have more leeway with a guy like him.
I mean, even just like now with the playoff drought, if we had like 7 more points than we had now, like people wouldn't care. You know,
I
it's
get
just
like
because we're losing again.
he's driving offense at a rate that's like absurd. Like I heard, I don't know who it was today. Like he's not on the Four Nations tournament for Canada, but Canadian media talks about him like he's going to be a shoe in for 2026 on Canada, on Canada. So it's like it just is taking a little bit longer, and I also do feel like a lot of his issues personally in his game is because he's playing with Henry Haru, who
Oh
is
my god,
terrible, beyond terrible. Like
3.2 million.
when he doesn't clear the front of the net, okay, that's whatever. That's an issue that we see. He's not physical. That's an issue. Go get a guy as his partner that will do the things that he doesn't necessarily have to do. Like that's another roster building issue. Like, why did we bring back Yokiharu? Why didn't we go try and find like the ideal foil for an Owen Power style guy where he can be the guy that takes the puck and breaks the puck out and drives offense, while his other defense, like his partner, is the stay at home like physical like meaty guy. Like that's all part of team building, and it's awful.
What would you say to the? Because the contrary point of view to that would be if you're a number one overall pick and you're that dude, like you don't need to, have that guy match up with you. Like, what would you say
Yeah.
to that?
Well, go watch. I would say go watch. Everyone talks about Victor Hedman. Go watch Victor Hedman when he was 21, 22 years old. He was the same player. It just takes a little bit of time for
So you're
these
promising
guys
us
to.
a Victor Hedman?
Yeah, I think he's going to be just as good as Victor Hedman was,
I mean,
is
I'm
ever
fine with
was.
that. I'll
But
hold you to that.
it just takes like it just takes time, man, and we don't have time. That's the problem. We don't have time.
Yeah, and you don't have time because of playoff drought. Like in actuality, you do have time, but like you don't. The last thing I want to say about Power here. Do you remember when I talked about Samuelson a handful of months back? And I was just like, I just feel like with him, he has these like times on the ice where he's like, oh, it won't happen to me.
Yeah,
Like
he's a little naive. He's
that's kind of
naive.
how I feel about with Power too.
Yeah,
Where it's just like,
Darlene does it too,
oh,
man.
they both do it. Yeah, it's like, dude, like I know like there's probably only like 3 or 4 times when like the opponent's gonna score a goal, but like you're playing big minutes, it's probably gonna happen when you're out there eventually. Like you kind of always have to have your head on a swivel and like just be alert. So there's a little bit of that going on
Yeah,
too, I think, with like him.
it's like naivety almost. Like there are times where Darlene gets the puck taken off him and he doesn't expect it, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, dude, you got it. Like you said, you got to have your head on a swivel, and like it's Sabres fashion. Like those moments feel like they always end up in the back of the net too. So it's
Oh,
like
always. Yeah,
you can't
always.
even make a mistake and then get bailed out, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, just, catch your breath and like don't let that happen again because the puck's in the net.
Yeah. Is it naivety or naivete?
It could be both, but I like naivete better.
But you said naivety.
I'm a fucking idiot.
All right, let's move on. How do you show players and agents this is a place to come? This is where we're getting a lot of
Literally one
memes coming
answer,
from this
just
one.
one answer.
He
You.
says, we don't have palm trees, we have taxes. Oh my God. Now
This is so
that
funny.
is
Like
the content we are looking for right
that
there, Kevin Adams.
that is the quote that is heard around the hockey world. And I'm gonna be
We don't
honest with
have.
you, I
Did you
low
see
key
the
like
post that someone posted? Clearly, Kevin Adams has never been to Depew, and they posted the Cove.
it was, dude. It was me. Yeah,
That was just classic.
Matt Bove. Shout out to him. He did a post where he put like the Grand Island Bridge and like red pepper Chinese restaurant and like all sorts of other stuff. Like
All like island references.
It's so funny, dude. Like okay, yeah, like we said earlier, I don't know if we talked about this on the show yet or if I said it like before we started recording, but like he's got a point, but like at the same time, hockey players aren't wired like that. Like they don't care about I guess they do care about like the weather and stuff, but like if you win games, people are gonna want to come here and play hockey. And like we haven't won games, so of course nobody wants to come here.
Yeah. The one thing I want to say here, because I know you want to talk about it too, is this is where I think that there is further evidence of their. I think I'm there about not spending to the cap tells us that there's an internal cap because he compared it to the Bills,
Yep.
uh, and said that Buffalo was for the Bills was not a place, and to get Josh Allen, we've kind of already talked about how that's a little bit different because Beans made the moves, but think about on a yearly basis how much dead cap the Bills eat and how much money they're just basically like burning and lighting on fire. And it's like it's it's peanuts compared to what the Sabres are spending. So like
Yeah.
if Terry is willing to do that with one team, like why can't you do that? Why can't you just at least even just spend to the cap with the Sabres? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's the question, man. Like that's where the like the anti budget people like that's their reasoning. Like, well, why would he do this and not that?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer, but the anecdotal evidence here just like all points to one team getting the love and the Sabres not getting the love. I will say though, all the stuff that's happened to the Pagulas over the last couple of years, like so COVID happens, fires everyone. Fires Jason Botterill because he doesn't want to fire um, those employees that worked for him at PSE. So he comes in and he hires Kevyn. Kevyn says, "I'll do it. I'll fire him. I'll take the blame." That's how he gets his GM job. Okay, that's one instance of being cheap. Then he does the stadium deal. I don't know who worked on the stadium deal, but not only did the taxpayer, get boned because we should never be paying for, a stadium. I think that's ridiculous. But the overhead charges are all on the Pagulas. And I just saw, I don't know who said it, but the stadium is currently over budget by like a significant amount. New
Mm-hmm.
York doesn't pay that. We don't pay that. Pagulas pay that. To compensate for that, he just sold 20% of the bills. The guy doesn't have the liquid, like he doesn't have the money to spend on both teams. So he's picking and choosing which team is good. The Bills, okay, that's my baby, and the Sabres are the redheaded stepchild.
I get it, dude, but and I know the Bills print money, but the Bills the Bills dead cap this year is $69 million.
Yeah, they're
The
paying Diggs
Sabres
specifically to not be here.
payroll, the Sabres payroll is 83.
Right,
Like you're
and
almost
that's
paying,
bottom five in the league again. If they do
but I'm
this
saying
every
you're like
year,
you just lit $70 million on fire for the Bills, and you're like you can't even spend 80 million. Like it just like that just doesn't make any sense to me, dude. It's like clearly he has the money if he can do
yep,
that.
I know. I don't get it either. I don't like. You would think he would be a hero if he did everything possible to make the Sabres like even just get into the playoffs.
Yeah. So I don't
That's
believe
why.
that he doesn't have the money, dude, because like he clearly has the money. And if he's just not willing to spend it, he's got to sell the team.
Then
You
we're
have to.
fucked, dude. I've made this point. Like I don't know if it's just me and my like Sabres depression, but like I've been thinking like, what is even the point of being a Sabres fan? Like you know what's gonna happen. Like he's not gonna spend the money. We're gonna be here. Let's say Kevyn Adams gets fired. Okay. Let's say it's never gonna happen, but let's say he does get fired. Who is he hiring? Who is coming in here that's gonna tell Terry, give me all this, like give me free will. You don't get any say. I want your entire pocketbook, or else I'm not coming.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that to him. And that's what needs to happen. It needs to be some, you know, old school hockey guy that's going to come in here and be like, it's either my way or the highway, and you step aside. Literally exactly what Brandon Mead does. Like, Terry has no say on football stuff. That's all being in his team, and look how good they are. Like, he gives them a chance to. do what they do. I just don't understand it, like you said.
I get it, man. So then the question would be, so you'd have to feel certain is if you're Terry Pagula and you're not gonna sell, you have to be certain that if you fired Kevyn Adams, that the next GM could do it better with what you're gonna give him.
Yep, and
And like
that's
if he
exact. Yep,
can make the move, if you can make that move because you've given Kevyn 5 years. I mean, you can wait a little bit more to see what happens this season, but if you're him, you have that, like, I guess that's the only choice that you have to make. And then I wonder if Bettman's just told him like, hey, if you don't keep the Sabres, like they're probably gonna move. Like maybe he already knows that information and that's why he's holding on. Like I don't know. This is
it
stuff we
would
don't know,
be
but
it would be so sad. Like I don't think that's a possibility. Like it can't be a possibility. Like this is a hockey market like through and through. Like they'd be stupid to lose this market, but at the same time, it's like, when does it just become not viable business to do hockey here? Because they don't win, they don't sell tickets in a league. The football is different. Football is entirely, their revenue comes from TV. The NHL, their revenue comes from people coming to the games. Like it's a gate-driven league, and no one comes to our games. So the Sabres are, participating in revenue sharing, and they're just as bad as like an Arizona Coyotes team that was just no one coming to their games, but they were still raking in all the revenue sharing from like the Canadians and the Rangers and the big teams. So it's like at what point are the other owners going to be like, get this team out of here because they're just not making enough money?
well, dude, if the cap's going up to some of the projected
110 million.
proposals
I
like
saw
110
110 million.
million, I
Yeah,
mean, dude, Terry's not gonna want to spend that money on the Sabres.
it's insane, dude. What do you mean? What do you mean? Like how can that be a thing? How can that possibly be a thing?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Obviously, it is. It's just this is where
The fact that we
this is
know
where
it's
we
a
feel
thing
stuck.
is where I'm stuck as a fan, personally.
But dude, like that's I've had some conversations too with Sports Talk Buffalo on Twitter. Like they're
Hmm.
always talking. Like it seems like they know she, whoever it is, has a good handle on economics in for the Sabres in the market, and they seem to believe that Buffalo is a small market team and
It
and
is.
won't support another team if things fall apart and that there's limitations here. But I just think to myself, like, I know it's a small market team, but like you would say the Bills are too.
Yep.
So like, and look at them, look how successful they are. I know it's different sports and like you said, different revenue shares and maybe that's apples to oranges. I don't know. But like, if you're just thinking about like the Sabres are trying to sell out an 18,000 seat stadium, every few night or a couple times a week, maybe, or like a 7 nights out of every month. It's like, you
Right.
could 100% do that with the shit that people blow their money on nowadays. Like people subscribe to like fucking like 10 streaming services a month. They blow their money on like Amazon random packages all the time, things they don't need. Like people spend money ridiculous. You don't think they'd like pay to go to like fill up KeyBank Arena? Like if the Sabres were good, I
Like, yeah, I agree.
they've
Totally
done it
agree.
before.
I totally
They
agree.
they've done it
I
before.
like you can't tell me that, like, they're a small market team, yeah, but like there are other small market teams in this league. Like
Yeah.
there's
And I'm
Columbus,
not saying that
there's
Sports Talk
Winnipeg.
Buffalo is wrong. I
Is
appreciate them, but
Yeah.
let us know. Like if you're listening, let us know. You can comment on this podcast. Like let us know like what you think too. Like this is what we want to hear from people. Or comment on YouTube if you're listening.
Yeah, the small market thing, like it doesn't I don't think it's an issue. I just feel like it's just we're not maximizing this place at all.
Yeah. All right. We can wrap this up here with a few more. We got questions on Quinn. What are you hoping to see from Quinn? Kevyn Adams said he's hard on himself, knows he's not performing up to standards, but it's not due to a lack of trying. Just going to keep working with him. Thoughts here at all?
I just I
Yeah,
feel
we talked
bad.
about
Like
it.
I feel bad, man. It's just like we weren't expecting him to have this massive drop off, and we need him. We just need him.
He's still a player. Like if it's going to happen this year, he's got to work out of it. So hopefully he does. Hopefully he rebounds because he could be massive for what the Sabres want to get done this year. do you feel a sense of urgency to spend to the cap? We kind of already talked about this. He repeated again that the cap is something he's not as focused on as
Which
the
is
media and the
insane.
fans. It's crazy to say
That's your
that.
job.
Dude, you watch Ted Lasso, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
of
you guys
course.
watch Ted Lasso. Okay, it reminds me of when in episode 3 when he does like the interview with Trent Krim in the Independent, and he tells Trent that he's not concerned with winning as a head coach, and he's like, "Can I use that quote?" Like, this is a quote that like I think about like that, where it's like you're gonna say that again, that you're not concerned with the cap. I'm like, oh my
Like,
gosh, it's
dude, what
just
do you mean? Like, this is why I think this is why he's covering for Terry. Like, what do you mean you're not concerned about the cap? That tells me that the NHL salary cap and the Sabre salary cap are two totally different numbers.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And then he says he also commented on what does adding a player do for the next round of guys? We have to position ourselves for the future. We've heard that a bunch, and it's like,
Also,
who are you
this part
realistically
too.
looking to extend on this
Yeah,
team?
that's another thing. Like, that was his excuse in the summer for not making a move, where we
Yeah,
had to extend Quinn and Levi. Like, he used Levi's name. Levi got sent to Rochester, and Jack Quinn is looking at like a $2 million contract. Like, those guys aren't getting raises anymore, dude. You can't really hang your hat on like, oh, we got to save money to extend these guys. Like, it's not happening anymore.
no, no. And this is where I get frustrated because look at like the big talking heads of the Bills. I'm going to go back to football again, like Greg Tomset,
Hmm.
Joe Marino, all these guys. They talk about the big extensions coming up for the Bills, and like next year, it's like, will we be able to retain Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas and James Cook and Khalil Shakir? Like, will we be able to pay all these guys? And they literally just all say yes, and it will happen because it's the Bills and it's Brandon Bean, and
Right.
it's like, why are we? Why are we worrying about this when we have all this cap space? When it's like you can just figure these things out. The Vegas Knights don't worry about spending to the cap; they figure
Dude,
shit out. Like,
go look at the cap expenditure for almost every team. They're all like within like $300,000 of like the upper limit. Like every single team is like butted right up against the cap. Like, and we're just sitting down here with like millions and millions to spare. It's asinine.
asinine. That's a great word. That's a great word. All right, and then we got. I think this might have been Harrington. Basically said, well, you're not extending Levi and Quinn right now, like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of
that's a
the
follow up right there. Yeah,
performances.
good follow
Yeah,
up.
which was it was a good follow up. He said, so why aren't we making a move? And like Adams, like it's crazy because Adams looked like surprised to that,
Yeah,
like almost like
he wasn't
what do you mean
expecting
I'm
it.
not extending them? Because like in his head he's probably like, I am extending them, like
Yeah,
just so you know.
I
But
don't
like,
think he expected to be like pushed back on that point.
yeah, and he basically says that they went hard for Natchez, but they didn't take a deal, and they're not going to make a trade and spend to the cap to jeopardize the future. So another trade fell through. Look at that. Not
And
not
like,
surprised.
okay, this is where it's so hard because, like, I don't know if he was specifically talking about Marty Necas or if he was talking about Ehlers because all the Ehlers discussion from Winnipeg was that they were playing hardball and, like, not actually serious about moving him. And then the Necas stuff, like, if you get taken, like, okay, look at the Savoy trade to Edmonton for McLeod, okay? That got, like, ridiculed by a lot of people. Like, oh my God, you traded a top prospect for Ryan McLeod.
Hmm.
3 months later, it's a good move. Savoy's in the AHL, playing okay, not a world beater. Brian McLeod's here. He's a good center. If you have to lose a trade, like on paper, but it brings you a good player. Oh, by the way, Marty Necas is leading the NHL in points right now.
Hmm.
Make the deal. Make the deal, dude. Like just do it. You know?
Yep. Yep. I know, man. I know, man. It's like you said, like I said last episode. For him, it's a no lose situation because if you don't make a trade and we suck and you potentially get fired, and if you do make a trade, it either works out and you're the saving grace and you did what you had to do, good job, or it doesn't work out and you lose the trade and you get fired anyways. So it's like that's what I'm saying. Like just if you can go make it, just go make it. I just don't think you can.
Yeah, it's
But
not happening.
it's not happening. Yeah. Last thing was is ownership supporting, and we talked about this already. We don't have to elaborate too much here. He basically just bailed Terry out again and said that, yeah, oh yeah, he gives me everything that I ask for. So
Yeah, of course you're
that
gonna
pretty
say
much
like
wraps it up.
ah, the fact that Terry hasn't spoken since 2020. Okay, I'm sorry. He said like 10 words when Lindy got hired is crazy. Crazy. Like, I know owners don't speak a lot and all this, but this is a unique situation.
Hmm.
The fans deserve to hear from Terry Pagula, and he's not a good public speaker, and he's kind of a bumbling idiot, but we deserve to hear from him. Like, he should, like, Kevyn took bullets for him today. And that's where I feel bad because whoever is in that GM chair is going to have to take bullets for an absentee owner. And that sucks.
Hmm.
So I don't know what we do from here, man. We just hope, I guess. We watch every game and just hope it gets better.
I'm gonna try and put up before we head out the. I don't know if this will work, but if it does, you'll be able to see it. You see
Right.
that?
Yeah, your tweet.
Yeah. So this is just to kind of put a bow on everything we talked about today. This was the facial expressions for Mr. Kevyn Adams as he was talking about all these different questions today. Dude, the hand and the eye one is great. The one at the
I,
bottom right there too, just like
the,
staring off at his space.
I like the bottom right, but the second one from the right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He looks like he looks like
Daffy
he's
Duck.
confused.
The first couple are just where he's like he's either like has to poop or is like holding in a poop or he's just like really hating someone right now. I'm like, oh my
He
gosh.
probably looked at Mike Harrington.
All right, so what do we do from here?
I don't know. We just hope it gets better. They play Utah tomorrow. Let's get a win, I guess. I mean, that's all we can do. Like, I'm not I'm not giving on this team up. I'm never as much as I say I'm not watching the game, I'm going to watch every game. I'm
No,
going to raise my son as a Sabres fan and my future other kids like as Sabres fans. And I'm not going to stop. So, I guess that's all we got to do and just hope it gets a little better.
you know what else isn't going to stop?
Sabres
Saber
Spotlight.
Spotlight.
Yep.
You know this is episode 50 for us.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, episode number 50, dude. That's
Wow.
crazy. Halfway to 100.
That's wild.
Yeah. So if I was like good enough with this tech stuff, I would have like went and put together like a montage of like oh some favorite moments from the years. But
Yeah.
we've had some good ones. We've had some
You
good
know what we
ones.
got to get back to because we're kind of in like the doldrums. You know what we got to do for like a fun
Oh yeah, some of the more random
episode?
stuff.
Yeah, we got to start like ranking things. We got
Yeah.
to just rank things again to like bring the vibes back up.
Yeah, we will. We'll get back to it next week. We needed to have the event session because like it
Oh
needed to
yeah.
happen.
And someone said we were being fucking babies.
Yeah, shout out to whoever commented on our thing. I gave them a nice little thing. Clearly, they've never listened to our show before because they hated that we were being or complaining last episode. I was like, well, if you listen to any of our episodes, people literally are annoyed with us that we're too optimistic half the time. But we appreciate that guy for listening, and hopefully he listened today too because it's pretty good show. So if you want to come back, on a week to week basis, do that. But that leads into a good point. Like I was saying before, like if you're listening on, it's only available on Spotify if you're listening, but you can comment on the show, and we get those comments right to our phones. I don't know
Yeah.
if you did. I got an alert right
Yeah,
away
I
when
get
that
them.
guy commented.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, and we respond like we'll respond right away. So that's a way you can interact with us. We do, as always, post everything on YouTube too. So that's an easy way to see comments in there. And if you have any specific questions for the show, or you want to give us some stunning feedback like this gentleman did last episode, you can always email us too. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Or if you have questions that you want us to answer on the show and talk about, do that as well. But yeah, I think after this, dude, we kind of needed to have this like it was not. This isn't like an emergency pod, but it was kind
Somewhat,
of
yeah.
like a let's talk about like what Adams because there was some big things in there and we had the event session next week. But I think we get back into our usual session next week. Hopefully, recapping some Sabres wins and
What do we got
we'll work
for
in
the
some of
schedule?
the comedy stuff or some of the the laid back kind of more casual stuff in there. Maybe get some goofballs in there as well. So
Yeah, I
we'll
missed
kind of
those.
hit more of our traditional stuff in the coming weeks here to have it give it back to more of like a regular season content
All
kind of
right.
feel. But
To
what do we
finish out
got?
the homestand here. Yeah, Utah tomorrow.
Win.
Detroit on Monday,
Win.
Rangers on Wednesday.
Win. Let's go.
It would be just like this team to do that too, wouldn't it? Like, the way this season has gone so far, it would be very, very 2024, 2025 Buffalo Sabres to rip off three straight after like the vibes are just like so toxic.
Sabres are 0-3-2 in their last 5, so they need to start getting some points. They have had good luck against the Rangers. For some reason, that's just a team that they do well against. Be interesting to see what comes of them. They just gave Shesterkin that big extension, but they traded Truba. So there's some things going on there. You don't know how teams are going to
Oh,
respond to
dude.
that.
So the Rangers did what the Rangers do. So did you notice? Like, I don't know if you were working late today, so I don't know if you saw. But earlier in the day, the Rangers did exactly what they did to us, to Ottawa, when they were like rumored to be trying to trade for Jack Eichel, and they put out there that the Rangers were interested in Brady Tkachuk, and Brady Tkachuk was interested in going to New York. Just like the fucking scummy Rangers to do something like that, because Tkachuk had to put out a statement saying that's absolute horseshit, not true. So just like they did for again to us,
Dude,
they did to
Drury,
them.
he's got
He's a
war crimes
snake.
going on over there,
I
man.
also feel like it's like as bad as Jacob Trouba kind of is now. Like I definitely would have welcomed him here just because he's an upgrade over Yoki Haru. I know he's a controversial player, whatever, but threatening your captain that you're gonna put him on waivers if he doesn't take a trade is insane.
It's
Insane.
kind of a bad look too for like who wants to go and like play for that dude, you know? Like I'm sure like you respect like the aggressive nature, but also it's kind of like that's going to be your boss too. Like I don't know.
Yeah. What a weird situation because like we said earlier, it is New York. It's like a they're gonna get guys to go there no matter what. But man, like Chris Drury, he's trying to be Vegas without the success.
Yeah. That's why we're so goddamn blessed with Brandon Bean because like you can just tell that Bean is just like an absolute alpha, but his dudes love him, his guys love him, but you
Yeah,
also know
he
like
treats
you're
people
not
with
gonna fuck with
respect.
him. Like yeah, like he's just like the perfect blend of everything. But all right, folks, I think that's gonna wrap it up today, right?
Yeah, I'm all set. I'm all set. And I mean, we
This
got
was
it out.
solid,
We
man.
got
This was
our,
solid.
hopefully there are better days ahead. I'm I go back and forth with myself almost every hour that God we suck, and then I'm like maybe things will get better.
If
So
we win against Utah, you know we're right back
oh,
in.
if we win against Utah, we're right back in it.
We are right back in it, baby. All right. Well, that's it, folks. As always, follow us on socials, Twitter, Instagram, and email the show if you have any questions. Everything, all the information for that will be in the show notes below. And we'll see everybody next week, hopefully after a few Sabres wins. And as always, stay safe in the Saberhood.
See ya.
Later.